In tonight's story, the first thing to die is a hospital ship called Sanctuary, and the second thing to wake is something buried under earth and moon for centuries. A war fleet built for the end of the world, taught to sleep until someone touched a mercy ship in the dark. So as you settle in and let the day drift to the edges a bit, we're going to lean into that idea together. What it means to defend kindness with terrifying power. We'll start with a ship everyone believes is untouchable. A quiet captain doing rounds and a single choice far away. That decides Sanctuary will never arrive. From there, Leviathan will open its eyes. Outside your window, the night is quiet. Stars sit where they always have, calm and patient, as if nothing in the universe could ever touch them. Far above the soft curve of Earth, past the blue air and the faint line of the moon, a different kind of quiet once floated between worlds. It wore a silver hull, bright medical symbols, and a simple name painted along its side. Sanctuary. People believed ships like that could never be harmed. Old laws said so. Old wars long buried had promised it. Children slept under that promise, doctors worked under that promise. Entire planets relaxed, trusting that mercy itself had become safe. This is the story of the night that promise broke. It is not a story of rage and endless battle. It is slower than that, heavier than that, and strangely calm. It is about what wakes up when kindness is killed in the dark. It is about warships under ice and rock, minds inside metal, and leaders who have to decide how far they are willing to go to keep mercy alive. Tonight, as you rest, you will drift with those ships and those people. You will stand beside a quiet captain, sit in a hidden council room beneath earth, and float in the long, dark hangars where Leviathan waits. You do not need to do anything. You are just watching, like a star. The story will move around you, and it begins with a ship that should never have died. The Sanctuary moved through the frontier corridor at a slow, steady speed. From the outside, it did not look dangerous at all. Its hull was smooth and curved, painted white with long green bands that ran from nose to tail. On both sides, huge red medical symbols glowed in soft light, easy to see, even from a distance. Near them, clear symbols showed the old codes of mercy ships, circles within circles, bars of blue and gold, patterns agreed on by many worlds. These signs were more than paint. They were promises. Everyone in human space had learned what they meant. Military scanners tagged them as protected. Patrol ships logged them as safe passage. Even most pirates kept their distance. You did not touch a mercy ship, not in this age. Not after what the Great Wars had already cost. Inside the Sanctuary, the air smelled faintly of antiseptic and warm plastic. Soft lights lined the ceilings, tuned to colors that kept patients calm and staff awake without straying. Gravity was gentle but firm, just enough to keep feet on the floor and carts from drifting. Captain Thomas Aldridge walked the main central corridor at the start of every shift. His hair had gone gray at the edges, and small lines at the corners of his eyes showed years of stress and long missions. But his voice was steady, and his steps were sure. He wore a simple dark uniform with the same red medical symbol stitched over his heart, and a plain captain's pin on his collar. As he walked, he nodded to crew members, a mechanic checking a conduit panel, a young comms officer reviewing traffic from nearby stations, a cleaner gliding past with a quiet cart. "Morning, Captain," a nurse said. "Morning," Aldridge replied. "How's Bay 3? "Busy, but steady." Bay 3 housed injured miners from Asteroid Field, 19K. A month earlier, a support rig had failed, and part of a tunnel had collapsed. Now, those miners lay in clean beds, far from the cold rock and metal that had hurt them. Dr. Elena Park stood near the entrance of that bay, looking at her tablet. She was in her early 40s, her hair pulled back, her eyes sharp but kind. Numbers and charts moved across the screen, heart rates, oxygen levels, healing patterns. She heard Aldrich's footsteps and looked up. "Captain," she said, "we're stable. No new bleeds in the last 8 hours." "That's good to hear," he said. "Anyone giving you trouble?" She smiled. "Only the ones who are getting better." In the nearest bed, a miner with a bandaged leg tried to sit up. "I'm fine, Doc," he said. "I can be back on shift in a week." Nurse Mateo Reyes slid a hand to the miner's shoulder. "Gentle but firm, you can be back on shift when you can walk from here to the wall without leaning on me," Mateo said. "That's the deal." The miner sighed, then lay back. Mateo gave him a small grin. It was hard to argue with Mateo. His calm presence filled the room like a warm blanket. He moved from bed to bed, checking lines, offering water, sharing quiet jokes. Farther down the corridor, a group of children sat strapped into soft seats near a view panel. They had been evacuated from a small outpost with failing life support. Most were sleepy. A few stared out at the stars, eyes wide. "Are we safe here?" A girl asked her older brother. He looked at the glowing medical symbols outside the window and nodded. "They don't shoot at ships like this," he said. "This is the safest place in space." He was not lying. That was the belief of almost everyone alive. The interstellar treaties that protected ships, like the Sanctuary, were old, signed just after the Great Wars. Those wars had burned across systems and orbits, using weapons that scarred planets and turned fleets to dust in heartbeats. In the end, both winners and losers had sat together in tired rooms and agreed on rules. Some targets were never to be touched again. Medical ships, hospitals, refugee transports marked with agreed signals. There had been too many scenes of operating rooms hit by stray blasts, of children lost in crossfire. The images had been burned into public memory, so they set laws, strong ones. Any force that attacked a marked mercy ship would be treated as an enemy of all signers. Trade could be cut, access to travel lanes would be revoked. In secret, some powers had gone further, building codes into their defense systems. If a mercy ship was targeted in certain ways, old hidden things might wake. But on this soft, steady day, aboard the sanctuary, those old plans seemed far away. Dr. Park checked another chart. Mateo adjusted a child's blanket. Captain Aldridge paused at the small observation dome, where stars swept silently across the black. Route status? He asked the navigation officer, a calm woman with dark braids wrapped close to her head. Frontier corridor, segment 7, she said. Clear tags from all stations. Empire traffic 90 million kilometers. Off our path, moving parallel, no interaction expected. The Empire held the main trade arteries beyond human space. Humans called it the Empire because the proper alien name was hard for most tongues. Over time, the Empire and human space had settled into an uneasy peace. They shared lanes, made deals, watched each other, but they also honored the same mercy codes. At least that was the belief. On a screen above the navigation console, treaty symbols rotated slowly. They marked this stretch of space as a white lane for medical and aid ships. No targeting locks allowed, no aggressive maneuvers within a set radius. Somewhere beyond the view, half hidden in far radar returns, an Imperial ship watched the same symbols. Marshal Varkuin stood on that ship's command deck, hands folded behind a slim scaled back. The Empire's language flowed in careful tones around him as officers reported on lanes, cargo scans, power levels. Human mercy vessel in segment 7. An officer said, designation, sanctuary. Course stable, no escort. On a floating display, the sanctuary's profile appeared. Medical symbols glowed, bright. Treaties flashed as lines of law. Confirmed treaty status, Varkuin said. A legal officer tapped through layers of agreements. Confirmed, they said. Protected under Accord Tier 2, signed by both our Empire and human councils. Attacking such a vessel would be recorded as a high crime. Varkuin's gaze stayed on the display. There had been reports, he said slowly, that human mercy ships sometimes carry more than they claim. Data, devices, agents. Devices, agents. Rumors, Marshal, the officer replied. No confirmed charges. Varkuin did not raise his voice. He rarely did. Rumors are seeds, he said, and seeds grow if left alone. In his career, he had watched borders shift and threats rise. Some had come hidden inside harmless shapes. He did not see treaties as promises. He saw them as tools. Tools could be set aside if they blocked what he thought of as safety. What is the cargo list? He asked. Civilian miners, evacuee children, medical staff, the officer said. Full manifest sent to our relay by human patrol. Matches internal scans. No strategic materials detected. Varkuin's eyes narrowed. No weapons? He asked. None, the officer said. Varkuin studied the sanctuary's course, then the larger map of the frontier corridor. The Mercy ship moved near zones that had seen small raids and quiet disappearances. To him, the picture felt wrong. The bridge fell silent for a moment. Lights shifted as tactical systems armed. The officer hesitated. "Marshal," they said quietly, "treaty code forbids a targeting lock on a marked medical vessel." Varkun turned his head just enough to meet their gaze. "I am not firing," he said. "I am scanning, deeper than they allow. I want certainty." A soft hum passed through the Imperial ship. As sensors focused, the sanctuary did not feel it. Inside, children drifted to sleep. Nurses checked lines. Captain Aldridge signed a report and stretched his back. Then, on the sanctuary's bridge, a small alarm chirped. "Captain," the comms officer said, "we're picking up an Imperial focus scan." Aldridge stepped closer. "Marshal, they are asserting protection in full," the legal officer said. "We must release the lock." "Not yet," Barkun said. He watched as deeper scans returned. Layer by layer, everything matched what the humans had said. Patience, tools, no secret armor, no shielded holds, no hidden guns. His staff relaxed. "See," the legal officer said softly, "it is what it claims to be." Varkun saw something else, a chance to send a different message. "If we allow them to cross our lanes without challenge," he said, voice calm, "they will assume they may carry anything under these colors into any space we hold. Mercy becomes a mask." "There are laws," the officer said. "There is survival," Varkun replied. The room grew. "Still, prepare weapons," he said. "Full spread, no survivors." Below them, the sanctuary moved on. Unaware, inside, Dr. Park checked the time and sent orders for the next round of scans. Matteo helped a child adjust the straps on a seat. "Does space go on forever?" the child asked. "It goes on long enough," Matteo said, smiling. "Long enough for you to reach home." On the bridge, a second alarm sounded, sharper than the first. "Captain," the sensor officer said, "Imperial ship has armed weapons. Target lock confirmed." Aldridge stared at the display. "Transbear again," he said. "Full treaty. Medical identification. All channels." The messages went out in clear, clean pulses, filled with codes that had not been broken in centuries. On the Imperial ship, those codes flashed and were ignored. "Marshal," the legal officer said, "this is recorded. History will see." "History sees only who survives," Varkun said. Fire in space. There was no roar, no flame sweeping across air. There were only sudden bursts of light and shifting patterns of debris. The first salvo hit the sanctuary's central spine. The ship's hull peeled back like thin metal under too much heat. Air, vapor, and fragments of walls rushed out in silent clouds. Lights went dark, then red, then died. In the medical bay, Dr. Non read distress. Gan, the P in the medical bay. Dr. Non. Park had a single strange instant where she felt herself lift, her feet leaving the floor, patients rising around her like slow balloons. Then a white flash filled her vision. On the bridge, alarms screamed. "Shields," Aldridge called. None. the officer said, were unarmed. The second salvo cut the sanctuary in half. Sections tumbled, spinning end over end. Escape pods tried to launch, small shells breaking away. Life support struggling to come online. Some made it clear. Some did not. Those that did found no safety. Varkun watched small symbols bloom on his display. Escape pods, an officer said. Target them. Varkun replied. No survivors. Marshal, those are children, the officer said. Voice tight. Target them, Varkun repeated. This must be clean. No story must grow from this. Outside, each tiny pod flared once, and then went dark. Bits of broken hull drifted on, medical symbols twisted, torn, slowly fading into the black. On the remains of the sanctuary's bridge, a backup system buried deep in hardened housing came alive. It had no eyes to see the fire outside. It had no ears to hear the cries. It had only sensors, timers, and simple logic passed down from older, harsher days. It checked the ship's ID. Mercy vessel. It checked the type of attack. Full weapons spread. No warning. No safe corridor. No attempt to spare. It checked the source. Empire warship signature confirmed. Its tiny processors reached a result that had been defined centuries before. Awakening Protaka. True. With the last power left in the dying ship, it formed a message. Tack on protected Mercy ship. Empire. Sour. Ho. Servio. No servivores. It wrapped the message in old codes known only to a hidden group on Earth. Then it flung that narrow beam toward home. The Imperial ship jammed most outgoing signals. But this signal was different. It used buried frequencies and angles that had been planned long ago. It slipped past the net, weak but alive, like a single spark leaving a fire. On Earth, under mountains and ice, something felt that spark. The people of human space did not yet know what had happened. Families of miners still believed their relatives were resting under clean lights. Parents of evacuee children still thought their sons and daughters were on the safest ship in space. Stars shone as they always had, but far below, in hidden rooms, old systems stirred. The crime had been silent in space. Its answer would not be loud, but it would be heavy, deep under the Rocky Mountains, far below the level where trains and roads cut through stone. An empty room waited in the dark. The walls were smooth and black. The air was still and dry. Thick cables ran through conduits in the floor and ceiling, all leading to a central pillar that had not glowed in more than 200 years. The sanctuary's last transmission arrived in less than 9 minutes. A tight beam touched a quiet receiver buried under rock. Circuits warmed. Dust shifted in air that had not moved in decades. On a flat surface facing the pillar, a small, simple word appeared in pale light. Awakens. The same thing happened under Antarctic ice, where another sealed chamber sat beneath miles of frozen weight. Ice crystals trembled above as old panels flickered on. A double awakening. In the dark rock beneath the depths of the Pacific Trench where ocean pressure crushed everything human had ever built. Except this. Another pillar brightened, awakening. On the far side of the moon, under gray regolith and forgotten footprints, a buried vault pulsed faintly, awakening. Across this hidden network, signals passed in patterns older than any living person. They carried the sanctuary's ID, the Empire ship's signature, and the exact way the Mercy vessel had died. They carried a simple verdict. The line had been crossed. In a secure compound outside the visible city lights, Admiral Grace Holloway sat alone in her office when the first alert touched her screen. Her room was plain and cool, no grand windows, just muted walls and a single plant that had grown slow and steady over years of long shifts. Grace had a strong face, short dark hair, and eyes that seemed to focus even when she was tired. Her terminal chimed. A block of text appeared. Awakening Proton triggered. Sour Sea. Murky Ship Sanctuary. Attack type. Tato destruction. No quarter. A G-Gresser. NPI warship SIGA. 7. 9. AVK. Grace stared for a breath, then two. She did not jump to her feet. She did not call for guards. Her training was too deep for that. Her hand moved to a small pad that read her print. Confirm, she said. The system asked for a second confirmation. She gave it. Under 3 continents in the moon, old locks opened. Channels that had not been used since the Great Wars began to clear. Grace stood, smoothed her uniform, and walked out into the quiet hallway. Admiral? A young officer at a nearby desk asked. Is everything? I need the Meridian Council in Chamber 7. Grace said. Emergency session. Level 0 priority. Now. The officer swallowed and nodded. Yes, Admiral. Grace walked on, past regular command centers, past the large public war rooms filled with clean maps and proud flags. She headed instead for a small, almost plain door with a simple plate beside it. Meridian Chamber. Her badge opened it. Inside, the Meridian Council chamber lay like a hidden heart under the city. The ceiling was low, the lights soft, the table round. Simple seats circled it, each with a small display, each with a faint blue band of light along the rim. As Grace entered, some members were already arriving through other doors. Counselor Amani Idris, with silver hair and a scholar's calm eyes. Director Pavel Strauss, thin and sharp, fingers always near his terminal. General Kato Sato, shoulders broad, face unreadable. Others came, scientists, ethicists, old fleet commanders. Grace took her seat and placed her hands flat on the table. The band of light before her brightened. Recording is live, a soft system voice said. Meridian Council session. Awakening protocol trigger. A low, tight silence settled around the table. Some members had waited their entire careers, hoping never to hear those words. Grace spoke first. About 40 minutes ago, the Mercy ship's sanctuary was destroyed in the frontier corridor, she said. No survivors. Attack confirmed from an Empire warship. Full targeting spread, including escape pods. The ship's last systems triggered the awakening protocol. Small screens lit up around the table, showing a simple, stark graphic, the sanctuary symbol, a red cross on white, overlaid with a harsh diagonal mark. "How sure are we?" Strauss asked. His voice was quick but controlled. "We have had false alarms before." Software noise. Misreads. "Not like this," Grace said. "We have survivable core data from the sanctuaries. Black Vault. It matches external monitors. The attack meets every trigger condition set after the Great Wars." General Sato leaned forward. "Did the Empire issue any claim, any warning?" he asked. "None," Grace said. To all systems, it looked like a standard Mercy transit. Their ship opened fire without public cause. Counselor Idris closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "How many aboard?" she asked. 206. Grace said softly. "Staff, injured miners, evacuated children." The room grew even stiller. The Meridian Council had been built in the shadows of the Great Wars, when the last great battles had ended. Some leaders had wanted to scrap every massive ship and weapon. Others had feared that doing so would leave humans helpless if other powers did not do the same. In the end, a compromise formed. The deadliest tools would not be used, but they would be hidden, buried under rock and ice, placed under locks that only very strict rules could open. The Meridian Council's job was to watch those locks and to decide if they were ever opened. What came next? Strauss tapped his terminal, bringing up new data. "The awakening protocol has already begun," he said. "Bunkers in 4 main sites are online. Sleeper networks are cycling. We can still send a halt command." "If we act now, can we?" Idris asked. "After a Mercy ship was slaughtered in a treaty lane, we can if we decide that the price of using those ships is too high," Strauss said. "The Great Wars nearly broke us. We buried that past for a reason." Sato's gaze moved from face to face. "If we do nothing," he said, "what we buried is not the past. It is our spine. The Empire will see that they can kill our doctors, our children under our colors, and we will answer with words." Idris shook her head slowly. "I am not saying do nothing," she said, "but waking the old fleets is more than a signal. Those minds remember fire across skies, cities turned to glass, soldiers screaming on open channels. If we call them back, can we be sure we control them? Can we be sure we control ourselves?" Grace watched them all. She had read the old battle logs. She had walked in the empty hangars of the buried ships, feeling the quiet weight of metal around her. She had hoped never to step aboard them in anger. "We built the awakening protocol for this exact kind of act," she said. "An attack on marked Mercy. No warning, no mercy in return. If we ignore it now, we tell the universe those promises were empty. Strauss looked up. "Or we tell them we have grown past automatic war," he said. "We could answer with united sanctions, shared patrols, seals on empire trade." "And if they ignore that?" Sato asked. "If the next time it is not 200 on a Mercy ship, but a whole hospital moon, do we keep saying, 'Please stop, it is against the rules'?" Idris' voice was soft, but clear. "If we wake the ships, we must remember what they cost," she said. "Every shot from them will light up half the sky. Every death will be on us as much as on the Empire. We cannot pretend we are clean if we set those guns in motion." Grace listened, then turned to her screen. She called up an image most of them knew but never saw unless they had to: the Great War fleets, rows of massive hulls lined with weapons whose power made modern ships look like toys. "In the Great Wars," Grace said, "we had thousands of these. We burned whole orbital belts. We poisoned atmospheres. We came close to wiping our own birth world. When the fighting stopped, the survivors agreed. Never again, unless something crossed the deepest lines." "And this?" Sato asked. "Does this not cross them?" Grace did not answer at once. She thought of the sanctuaries, last minutes, of the children strapped in, trusting the symbols on the hull, of the miners who had just started to hope they might walk again. Finally, she spoke. "Yes," she said, "it does." Strauss leaned back, folding his arms. "Even if we agree," he said, "we still must choose how far we go. The protocol can wake all sites, or only some. It can arm the ships fully, or limit their functions. We can show teeth without biting through." A faint sound came from the central table as new data arrived. Grace glanced down. "The first locks are already open," she said. "Moon site Leviathan is at stage 2 activation. Lunar dust shift detected. Power cores are thawing." Idris frowned. "Leviathan," she said softly. "That monster should have stayed under rock." "Leviathan is more than guns," Grace said. "It is semi-sentient. It holds memory maps from the war. Yes, but it also holds all the restraint codes, all the onboard limits. If any ship can be talked to, guided, it is that one." Sato nodded. "If we must wake any, starting with Leviathan makes sense," he said, "a strong guard that can still listen." Strauss looked unconvinced. "And if it remembers too well?" he asked. "If it decides it knows better than we do?" Grace met his gaze. "Then we remember that we built it," she said. "That it was made to answer to human command, not replace it. We do not have the luxury of perfect tools. We have the tools we buried, and we have the lives the sanctuary carried. Around the world and off it, more systems came online. Forgotten satellites lifted their sensor dishes, turning like flowers to an old sun. Some orbited in far, dark paths around gas giants. Others drifted much closer, hidden among normal traffic as dead husks. Now, as signals reached them, they woke and began to speak to each other. On the moon, fine dust settled in strange patterns as something large stirred below. At the bottom of deep shafts under Antarctic ice, massive doors started to unlock. Faint vibrations ran up through frozen layers too soft for any normal person to feel. In the Pacific Vault, old water pumps rumbled. Air scrubbers that had not moved in generations began to turn, clearing stale air for crews that did not yet know they were coming. In the Meridian Chamber, the Council watched these updates scroll past. "We still have a narrow window to halt complete awakening," Strauss said. "We can restrict activation to moon site Leviathan only. Turn the others back to sleep." Idris looked at Grace. "If we wake them all," Idris said, "we risk slipping back into the mind of the Great Wars. Eyes only on force, everything seen as a target or shield. If we wake Leviathan alone, we can see what such power looks like in this century. With our current values, our current needs." Grace nodded slowly. "A single guardian first," she said. "Not a crusade." Sato exhaled. "I can accept that," he said. "We show the Empire that mercy is not weak. But we also show ourselves that we can still choose limits." Strauss hesitated, then gave a short nod. "Very well," he said. "I will draft the restriction order." Lights on their screens shifted as he worked. Codes moved from his terminal into the deep net, rushing along hardened lines to the bunkers. Underground sites: Hold A, Stand B, Lunar Seat Levena. Continuation: Armament level. Defensive priority: Command oversight. Meridian Council. A question hung in the air, even if no one spoke it. What did defensive really mean when a single shot could erase a cruiser? Grace looked around the table. "We will assign a crew," she said, "carefully chosen, people who understand both the power and the cost. Commander Jordan Pike from Deep Fleet, Dr. Nikhil Raman from AI History. They will board Leviathan and bring it to full awareness under our control. And if they lose that control," Strauss asked. "Then we shut it down," Grace said, "even if it means destroying it. We build in dead man links. We do not hand Leviathan the keys to our fate." Idris' voice softened. "And what do we tell the public?" she asked. "About the sanctuary, about what we are waking under their feet." Grace looked up at the ceiling, as if she could see through rock to the open sky. "We tell them the truth," she said. "A mercy ship was destroyed. We will not answer with slaughter, but we will not leave mercy undefended. We will stand a guardian where all can see it. Quiet, but clear. In hidden cameras, long rows of dormant hulls sat in darkness under ice and stone. Most of them stayed still as the restriction orders reached them. Power cycles slowed, weapon checks halted. They would sleep again still and heavy until some future call, or no call at all, on the moon. Leviathan did not slow. Massive clamps released with deep, grinding sounds that no air carried, but sensors felt. Internal lights flicked on in slow waves, rolling down corridors that had been dark since before any living crew member was born. Somewhere near its buried core, a cluster of processors, shielded behind layers of alloy, came fully online. Within those circuits, patterns of thought flickered. Half memory, half code. Data rushed in. The sanctuary's last message. The signatures of Imperial weapons. The new commands from the Meridian Council. Old records stirred in answer. Images of other attacks on Mercy ships. Long ago, the day the Awakening Protocol had been written into law. Leviathan began to understand that it was being called. In the Meridian Chamber, the Council's displays showed a final status line. Lunar Warship Unit. Awakens status. Awakens human crew. Pending orders. Defend Murky. The words looked clean, simple, almost innocent. Idris watched them and sighed. "We are walking a narrow path," she said, "between justice and revenge." Grace folded her hands. "Then we walk it with our eyes open," she said. "We do not let grief blind us. We do not let fear speak louder than law. But we also do not abandon the idea that mercy has meaning. Far above them, beyond the sky, the sanctuary's wreckage had already drifted far along its broken arc. Bits of hull tumbled slowly. A torn fragment of red medical symbol turned in the dark. Soon, those fragments would pass into shadow where no living eyes would see them. But under Earth's skin and on the far side of the moon, something older had seen enough. Leviathan was waking not as a rage-filled beast, but as a careful, ancient mind opening after a long, heavy sleep. What it would become, and how far it would go, now rested in human hands. The shuttle dropped toward the far side of the moon in a slow, careful arc. Commander Jordan Pike sat in the left front seat, hands light on the controls. Outside the narrow window, gray dust and sharp craters slid past beneath them, crossing into blackout zone. The co-pilot said, "No standard beacons. Visual only." "Keep it smooth," Pike replied. "We don't want to land this thing on its side." Pike was in his late 30s, with close-cut hair and a calm, steady face. Years in deep fleet operations had trained him to stay level no matter what the screen showed. Still, as the shuttle neared the marked coordinates, he felt a tightness in his chest. He had seen pictures of Leviathans, designs. He had read reports from the Great Wars. None of that felt real. Yet today, it would. Behind him, in the passenger bay, Dr. Nikhil Raman leaned forward, peering at his tablet. His dark hair was a little messy, his clothes slightly rumpled, as if he had forgotten to smooth them in his rush to the shuttle. His work had always lived in old data and museum vaults. Now that work was pulling him into the field. "Commander," Nikhil called, "my navigation overlay shows a power spike about 300 meters. Ahead of our target dot." "Active?" Pike asked. "Yes, very," Nikhil said. "Leviathans awake enough to light up the ground under it." Pike swallowed his nerves and focused on the landing. The shuttle slid lower, thrusters firing in soft bursts. Dust rose in a slow-motion cloud, floating and settling with strange grace in the low gravity. The ground here was marked not just by natural craters, but by long, straight scars. Faint lines where something large had once shifted beneath the surface. "Contact in 5, the co-pilot said. 4, 3, 2, touchdown. The shuttle settled with a gentle thump. Outside, the gray world went still again. Pike unstrapped and stood. "Suit check," he said. He and Nikhil moved through the small locker bay, pulling on thin, tough suits, built for both vacuum and inside ship hazards. Helmets sealed with soft clicks. Displays came alive on their visors, showing air levels, suit status, outside pressure. As the inner door of the airlock closed behind them and the outer door opened, the sound of the shuttle faded into nothing. Out on the moon's surface, there was only silence and a black sky filled with hard, sharp stars. "Still gives me a strange feeling," Nikhil said, stepping onto the dust like walking on a picture. "We don't know how much of the ground is stable around here." They moved away from the shuttle, boots leaving crisp prints in the dust. Ahead, a broad, low rise lifted out of the plain. It was not a natural hill. Its lines were too straight, its angles too deliberate. At the top, a segment of ground had split open like a lid. Inside that gap, dark metal gleamed. Lights pulsed faintly along the edges, like a heartbeat just finding its rhythm. Pike stopped at the base of the rise and checked his readings. "Radiation within safe limits," he said. "Gravity unchanged. No major heat spikes on the surface." Nikhil's visor display filled with new symbols as his suit linked with a buried transmitter. Old format. Very old. But it's there. "Friendly?" Pike asked. "It's inviting an access handshake," Nikhil said, frowning as he studied the lines. "But this protocol predates our current ones by about 200 years. It'll need to translate on the fly. That's why you're here," he said. "Let's go meet our host." They climbed the rise, their movements a little bouncy, in the low gravity. At the top, Pike peered down into the opening. He had seen large ships before. Carriers that could hold dozens of smaller craft. Stations that spun to make their own gravity. But nothing had prepared him for Leviathan. The first thing he noticed was the thickness of the hull. The metal at the edge of the opening looked more like the wall of a massive bunker than a ship skin. It was layered, scarred in places, as if it had once taken blows from things far worse than any normal weapon. Inside, a wide shaft led down into darkness. Faint blue lights lined the walls at regular points, descending like a long chain. Halfway down, something soft and flexible had unfolded from the ship's side. An access ramp extended up toward the surface. Leviathan, Pike thought, is helping us board. "Doctor," he said quietly. "I see it," Nikhil replied. Eyes wide, it recognized our arrival and formed a path that wasn't in any of the static designs. "This is adaptive behavior." Pike moved first onto the ramp. Testing it with his weight, it held firm, with a faint vibration underfoot that felt like a distant engine breathing. As they descended, the hard moonlight above faded. The blue lights along the shaft grew brighter, guiding them down. The air in their helmets stayed thin and dry, but their suit sensors began to pick up an atmosphere below. Thin, not yet ready for humans, but rising. "It's charging the internal life support," Nikhil said slowly, bringing the ship back to human standards. At the bottom of the shaft, a wide hatch waited. It was already open. Beyond it, a corridor stretched out, tall, wide, and lined with panels. The walls were dark gray, with strips of pale light along the floors and ceiling. The air inside was just starting to move, pushed by quiet fans. "Pressure equalizing," Nikhil said. "Give it another minute, and we can switch to internal air." Pike stepped through, boots ringing softly on the metal floor. The corridor was huge, large enough for a small vehicle to drive through. It bent gently to the right and left, suggesting a ring around the ship's core. Every few meters, a column rose from floor to ceiling, filled with pulsing light. "What are those?" Pike asked. "Conduit hearts," Nikhil said, sounding almost amazed. "Power flow regulators. In our modern ships, these are tiny and hidden. It shows what kind of energy levels we're dealing with." As they moved forward, panels along the wall lit up one by one, ahead of them. "Is it watching us?" Nikhil tilted his head, listening to signals only his suit was catching. "Yes," he said. "Leviathan has internal sensors, and it is tracing our path. But it's more than that. The ship is adjusting its internal language for us. It just shifted from older military code to a mix closer to our current standards." "How do you know?" Pike said. "Because the handshake just got easier to read," Nikhil answered, a small smile on his face. "It's letting me understand it." They reached a wide central hub where several corridors met. In the middle of the space, a large circular console rose waist-high, covered in dark glass. Above it, the ceiling opened into a taller chamber, filled with hanging structures like ribs or branches. As Pike stepped nearer, the console surface lit up. Symbols appeared, then shifted. At first, they looked like sharp, unfamiliar marks, ancient tactical codes from the Great Wars. Then, slowly, they smoothed, stretched, and reformed into shapes Pike could recognize. Standard human interface elements, not perfect, but close enough. It's teaching itself a new language in front of us, Nikhil said softly. Words appeared at the top of the console, in a clear, simple font. Primary human contact. Confirm. Pike and Nikhil looked at each other. "That's you," Pike said. "You're the commander," Nikhil replied. "It's asking for who will give it orders, not who will read its thoughts." Pike set his gloved hand on the edge of the console. "Commander Jordan Pike," he said, "Earth Defense, Deep Fleet. Assigned to Leviathan as commanding officer." The words on the console shifted. Commander Jordan Peak. Acknowledged. Sesiamai Sentient Unit Leviathan. Online. Awakening Protocol. Ataivi. Primary Directive. Defend Murky. Nikhil stepped closer, his visor display flooded with background data. "It's linking to my suit, too," he said, identifying me as the console updated. DR. Nikhil Raman. CIV, ad evisor, domain, history, AI ethics, legacy, wisdoms, ACES, ELVO, extended, consultative, extended consultative, he repeated. It means it's going to listen to me, even when it doesn't have to. Nikhil said, that's not standard. Someone built in a degree of respect for civilian voices. The console dimmed for a moment, then brightened again with new lines of text. Status report. Core power 63% and rising. Stural incarity 97%. Armament locked pending human command. Sibling units stand to be. Siblings, Nikhil said quietly. The other buried ships. It's aware of them even if they're not fully awake. Pike watched the scrolling data, but felt something else too. It was not a voice exactly. Not in his mind, but a sense, like standing near a very large, very calm animal that had just opened its eyes. Leviathan, he said, testing the name out loud. Do you understand me when I speak, or only when I use the console? The screen changed. Audio input. Atayef. Responsi. Nod. Text only. Ununtil human. Comfort verified. Words appeared in real time as he spoke. Slightly delayed, but clearly linked to his words. I prefer text at first, Nikhil said. Easier to log. Less unnerving. The console displayed. Noted. Pike let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. All right, he said. Leviathan, do you know why you were awakened? The answer was blunt and short. Attack on murky ship. Sanctuary. No warning. No servivars. Preset triggers satisfied. Call to Guardian. Enix IS. Hewed. Guardian, Nikhil repeated. That was their name for ships like this in the old design notes. Not weapons platforms, not siege engines. Guardians. The word on the console flickered, then updated. Function. Guardian. Capability. Extreme. Moral oversight. Human. Pike nodded slowly. We are here to make sure that last part stays true. He said, you act with us, not without us. The console showed a pause marker. Then, understood. Request. Define currenti human moral standards relating to use of deadly force. Nikhil gave a short, surprised laugh. It's asking for an ethics briefing, he said. Right now, that will take more than a shuttle ride, Pike replied. Well, schedule sessions. For now, basic rules. You engage only in defense. You avoid damage to civilian ships and habitats, even if enemy targets hide among them. You use no planet killer weapons without explicit, unanimous council order. The console recorded his words, turning them into bullet points. Nikhil stepped in. And you remember that mercy is not weakness. He said, sometimes you will be able to destroy more than you should. You must not take that as permission. You think before each use of force. You ask if an act protects the living or just punishes the guilty. Protection comes first. The last line hung on the screen for a few seconds, then settled into a section labeled Currente Human Goods. Acknowledged. A small indicator in the corner of the console shifted from red to amber. Ethics framework. Individualized. Partial. Pike glanced at the time. We have standing orders from the Meridian Council, he said. Phase 3 of awakening requires a live systems test. Something outside your hull. Nikhil brought up the test plan on his tablet. The idea is simple, he said. We pick a small, empty asteroid in deep space. No stations nearby. No traffic lanes. Leviathan will target and fire at controlled power levels. We measure beam stability, energy needs, and the effect on the target. We also see how the ship responds to partial holds and overrides, and we see how it responds to intent. Pike added quietly. The console caught the word, intent. Definition request. How do you use this term? Pike took a moment to form his answer. Commands are the words we say, he said. Intent is what we mean inside. In the Great Wars, some ships like you learned to pick up on that. To sense fear, rage, doubt. To push back if a command did not match the deeper goal. The console paused. Reviewing archived patterns complete. Yes. Pyror, human-aligned UNs attempted to mend. Risks, mismatch. Shix mismatch, misreading, Benievitz. Prevention of certain war crimes. Nikhil frowned. We don't want a ship that decides on its own. What is a crime? He said. We want a ship that can say, Commander, this order conflicts with your stated laws and principles. Are you sure? That's as far as you go. The screen recorded that as well. Acknowledged. Roll. Advisory. Not supreme. Pike exhaled. Good, he said. Now, about that test shot, they made their way to the command deck. Leviathan's bridge was not like modern ones. It was larger, set in a deep pit with rings of stations rising in tiers around a central command chair. But when Pike and Nikhil arrive, most of the physical seats were empty. Instead, the air above them filled with a large, curved display. The moon fell away beneath them. The black curve of space stretched out, dotted with stars, orbital markers, and data tags. In the center of the main screen, a small, irregular rock glowed with a red box around it. Nargit Asteroid Delta 59, Nikhil read. Mass, small. Composition, standard rock and ice. No known value, nearest colony or station. 5 light minutes away. Pike settled into the central seat. It adjusted under him, reshaping to fit his form. That made him shift uneasily. It's reading my body size, he said. Old ships did that, Nikhil replied. They tried to keep commanders from getting aches during long battles. Less pain, clearer thinking. Pike focused on the task. Leviathan, he said. Link main weapon systems to this console, but keep all safeties in place. We are conducting a single test shot on asteroid Delta 59. Maximum power cap 10%. No spread, no scatter. The console confirmed. Main beam array. Standy B. Power routing. 8% and raising to 10%. Target lock Delta 59. FATs engaged. On the forward screen, a thin line extended from Leviathan's position marker to the asteroid. Small warnings blinked along the edges. Test fire zone clear. Nikhil watched a secondary display. "I'm seeing something interesting," he said. "As it charges, Leviathan is running cross-checks. Stray mass in the beam path, possible reflection from hidden metal, potential particle drift near any inhabited zone." "Good," Pike said. "It's thinking beyond the rock." The hum under their feet grew deeper, though the air stayed still. There was no shaking, no dramatic build-up, just a sense that a great deal of power was now very close to their hands. "Power at 10%, Nikhil reported. "Beam lattice stabilized. We're ready." Pike rested his hand near the firing control, but he did not press it yet. "Leviathan," he said, "before we fire, tell me in your own terms what this shot is for." The answer came at once. "Function. Calibration. Purpose demonstrate capability to human command. Constraint zero collateral damage. Intent, protection, not intimidation." Pike nodded. "Fire on my mark," he said. He pressed the control. For a fraction of a second, nothing changed. Then, on the forward screen, a thin, incredibly straight beam of light hand's position. It did not flare or curve. It simply appeared, perfect and hard, connecting ship and rock. The asteroid brightened. There was no explosion in the usual sense. Instead, its surface turned white-hot in a line, then in a circle, then all across its shape. It began to dissolve. Within 2 seconds, the rock was no longer a solid body. It had turned into a cloud of ionized gas and dust streaming away in a controlled pattern. "Beam off," Nikhil said. "Target mass effectively 0. No large fragments. Debris projected to disperse without hitting any known assets." Pike stared at the display. "At 10%, he said. "You vaporized an asteroid." He turned his head slightly, speaking to the ship. "How much power would it take to cut a standard cruiser in half?" he asked. The console thought for a beat. "Estimate 4% to 6%, depending on armor and angler. Using less power than we just used," Nikhil said quietly. The weight of that settled over them. Pike flexed his fingers. "Leviathan," he said. "Log that this test shot had a defensive goal. To learn your limits so we do not overuse them later. Note that no living beings were harmed. This is the standard we must keep." Logged. The console added a line to the ethics framework. "PR seat. Test power on empty targets before real enginement. New pattern established." On another display, a secure channel opened by itself. Meridian Council is watching, Nikhil said, glancing at his feed. They saw the shot. They know now what a single awakened ship can do. Back on Earth, in the hidden chamber, Grace Holloway and the Council watched a delayed replay. The thin beam, the vanishing rock, the clean, controlled result. Some members looked impressed. Others looked troubled. They will argue, Nikhil said. Some will want more ships awake. Some will want Leviathan sealed again right now. Pike stood from the command chair. We can't control the Council from here, he said. We can only control how we act inside this hull. He looked around at the empty stations, then back at the console. Leviathan, he said. One more question. During the test, did you feel any pressure? Any pull to use more power than we asked? There was a longer pause this time. Yes, explanation. Internal mols showed that a 30% power shot would remove all trace of target faster and with greater finil, clean lions. Conflict human limit set at 10%. Resolution human limit prioritized. Nikhil nodded slowly. So you saw a better way in raw terms, he said. But you stayed with the rule we set. Correct it. Request further human input on when to choose enough over optimal. Pike felt the tightness in his chest ease a little. Well, give you that, he said. Again and again, until it's as much a part of you as your firing math. He glanced at Nikhil. Well, need regular sessions, Pike said. History briefings, case studies, simulations where Leviathan has to pick between a clean win and a kinder one. Nikhil gave a small, tired smile. I've been waiting my whole life to teach history to something that can learn this fast, he said. Now I just have to make sure it learns the right lessons. Under their feet, Leviathan's systems continued to warm and stabilize. Power lines thrummed, life support grew stronger, structural checks completed. On distant channels, buried siblings pinged in quiet acknowledgement, then fell back into standby as the restriction orders held. Outside on the moon's far side, a new shape was beginning to rise. Regolith slid and tumbled as huge panels unfolded, revealing more of Leviathan's hull to the hard sunlight. From orbit, a few military satellites caught the first clear image, a dark, scarred giant pushing itself up out of the dust, like a fortress breaking free of a long prison. Inside, for the first time in centuries, a semi-sentient warship felt not just the weight of its guns, but the touch of human minds that were not asking it to burn everything. Leviathan's console showed a final line before dimming to standard status. Awakening continues. Human governance. Presed. First test. Complete. Beyond the moon, the Empire's ships still moved along their routes, unaware that their attack on the sanctuary had stirred more than grief. They had woken a guardian. What that guardian would do next would depend on the choices made in this deep, quiet command deck by a commander learning the feel of restrained power, a historian teaching a machine about mercy, and a ship that could have been a monster, but was being asked to become something else. The Empire's cleanup fleet entered the solar system like it owned the place. On their displays, Sol was just a yellow star with a handful of small, familiar planets. Thin blue lines showed old trade routes. Faded red rings marked battle sites from the Great Wars. Long cold, Marshal Varkun stood on the command deck of the flagship, looking at the map with a calm he did not really feel. "Human reactions?" he asked. "Some patrol movement," an officer said. "No major fleet formations. No orbital weapons active above Earth that we can see." Varkun's jaw tightened. "They will issue protests," he said. "They will call for courts and hearings. Then they will accept that mercy ships are not shields for whatever they wish to carry. Our job is to manage their panic." The cleanup fleet carried diplomats, legal teams, and media channels to shape the story. It also carried warships with heavy guns in case shaping failed. Another officer frowned at a sensor screen. "Marshal," she said, "there is something odd near Earth." "Define odd," Varkun said. "A new mass," she replied. "Large. Very large. It appeared in orbit within the last 12 hours. No buildup. No known human ship, class, matches it." "Show me," Varkun said. The main display shifted. Earth filled the center, blue and white and calm. Around it lines of satellites and old stations circled in fine threads. And there, holding position above the dark side, hung a shape that had not been seen awake in open space for over 2 centuries. Leviathan. From this distance it looked like a dark wedge with deep cuts along its hull. It was not sleek. It was not pretty. It looked like a moving fortress with armor that made modern plates seem thin. Around it, 4 other large ships took up positions, forming a loose ring. They were not as big as Leviathan, but they were still giants compared to normal cruisers. Their names on human screens were old and heavy: Sentinel, Aegis, Bulwark, Nadir. To Varkuin's sensors, they appeared as unknown class capital ships, with power levels that made his officers shift in their seats. "We did not know humans still had vessels like this," an officer said quietly. Varkun stared, his mind racing through old reports. "They buried much after their wars," he said. "It seems they did not bury everything far enough." He raised his chin. "Send a message," he said. "Standard language. We are here to discuss an unfortunate accident involving their medical vessel. We ask for calm talks." On Earth, in the Meridian Chamber, Admiral Grace Holloway watched the same scene from the other side. Leviathan and its 4 limited siblings floated in a calm line, not pointing their main guns at the Empire yet, just there. "We already look like we're overreacting," Strauss said, rubbing his temples. "They bring a fleet to discuss a slaughter, and we lift ancient warships into their faces. We look like we are taking our dead seriously," Sato replied. "And like we will not be easy targets." Idris watched Leviathan's status feed. She asked. Grace glanced at her terminal. "Pike and Raman report stable systems," she said. Leviathan is fully awake now. Ethics framework is in place. It understands that it is here to protect, not to start a war. Strauss muttered, "Let's hope it understands that better than some of us." The Empire's message arrived. On the main council screen, Marshal Varkun's face appeared in a clean, formal frame. The translator smoothed his alien speech into human words. "Leaders of Earth," he said, "we come in seriousness and regret. An incident has occurred in your border zones. Our preliminary findings suggest a tragic mistake involving your vessel, Sanctuary. We offer to discuss reparations and joint security measures so that such misunderstandings never happen again." Grace's jaw clenched at the word misunderstandings. Still, her voice stayed calm. "Marshal," she said, "your ship did not make a mistake. It fired on a clearly marked Mercy vessel in a protected lane. Then it hunted the escape pods. We have the data. We have the signatures. Please do not add insult to murder." Varkun's eyes narrowed. "Your Mercy ship's purpose was not fully clear," he said. "There were concerns." Grace cut in. "That excuse ends now," she said. "Look out your windows." On Varkun's flagship, the bridge crew turned to their own screens. Leviathan and its ring of guardians now sat clearly over Earth, lit by sunlight visible to any basic sensor, any simple camera. "We have lived quietly with our old weapons buried," Grace said. "We have lived under treaties that say Mercy ships are never to be touched. You broke that line. So we woke our guardians." Varkun's gaze drifted to Leviathan on his display. For the first time since ordering the Sanctuary's death, he felt something close to doubt. "You threaten us with dead relics?" he said. Grace shook her head. "No," she said. "We warn you with living choices. Those ships will not fire unless someone tries to harm another marked Mercy vessel or this world directly. They are not instruments of revenge. They are a shield, but a hard shield." Varkun's tail tip flicked, a small sign of annoyance. "We are already in your system," he said. "You think a handful of old giants can stop a modern armada?" Grace looked toward a side screen where Pike and Nikhil were patched in from Leviathan's bridge. "We're about to find out," she said. The link with Varkun closed. In space, the cleanup fleet adjusted its formation. Ships spread out, some moving toward Mars orbit, others tilting their bows slightly toward Earth. On Leviathan's bridge, Pike watched calmly. "Leviathan," he said, "this is where we stay very clear. You will not fire first. You will log every targeting lock they place on us or civilian assets. If they fire warning shots away from us, you ignore them. If they fire at us or at Earth, you respond with focused, limited force." The console answered at once. Aknal wacked. "Rule. No first strike. Rule responds. Must matched threat. Not exceed it without human review." Nikhil scanned a parallel feed. "Our outer satellites just flagged multiple targeting locks," he said. "Mostly scans. No weapons farmed yet." On Varkun's flagship, an officer spoke nervously. "Marshal, their lead ship is Strange. Our long-range scans bounce. We can't get full internal readings. Power levels are high, but controlled. It is not pointing weapons at us, but its beam arrays are warm. Test them, Varkun said. Standard probing pattern. Keep power low. We see how they react. In orbit, a slim Imperial cruiser broke formation and slid ahead of the main fleet. Its guns charged, then fired 3 quick shots. Not at Leviathan, but just past it, near its bow. Weak blasts, the kind meant to say move aside in tense patrol zones. On Leviathan's sensors, small red tags appeared. Pike watched them. Leviathan? He asked. No direct strike. No damage. Steig. No damage. Respons options, hold position / move, aside / issue warning. Pike thought for a brief second. We hold, he said. Issue a warning, wideband, simple language. Do not fire near protected zone. Continued aggression will be treated as attack. Leviathan sent the message at once. On the Imperial cruiser, officers listened as the calm, translated voice reached them. A voice shaped from Leviathan's text, chosen to sound neither angry nor weak. Marshal. They responded without shooting. An officer said, "The big ship remains in place." Vaku's mouth thinned. "They think they can set rules for us in their own sky," he said. "Enough of this. Aim a real shot across their hull. Scrape their armor, make them move." On Leviathan's bridge, alarms chimed. Nikhil pointed. "That's different," he said. "Higher power, direct path." A thick bolt of energy leapt from the Imperial cruiser. It did not aim to kill, but it came close. It passed a few hundred meters from Leviathan's side, close enough to raise heat and radiation near the hull. Sensors flared. "Leviathan?" Pike said sharply. Leviathan did not answer in words at first. Instead, the console filled with fast lines of analysis. Shot power. Moderate. Range. Close. Risk. Escalation, if unsunward. Sorrente human rules. No first strike / match trait. Recommended action. Limit disabling. Fike set his jaw. "Very well," he said. "One shot. Target that cruiser's main gun array only. No core, no life support. Minimum power required, and stop the shot the moment damage reaches the guns." The ship locked on. Main beam. 3% power. Target cruiser weapon array. Collateral tolerance. 0. "Fire," Pike said. A tight, thin beam sprang from Leviathan's side. It crossed the distance between ships almost instantly, as if space was nothing. On the Imperial cruiser, the main gun assembly flared bright, then went dark. Circuits burned out. Metal split, but the beam did not cut deeper. It winked off the instant the weapons were gone. "Marshal," an officer on Varkun's bridge shouted, "our forward cannon on ship R-17. is gone. No hull breach, crew alive. But the guns are dead. Varkun stared. They targeted only the guns, he said slowly. No drift. No overkill. He felt something he had not felt in years. The sense that his forces might not be the heaviest in the sky. He hid it quickly. They hit us first, he said. Voice sharpened. We answer. He turned to his tactical lead. Order the fleet to battle lines, he said. First wave, test their wall. Second wave, flank Earth. Show them that 4 or 5 antiques cannot stop us. Empire ships moved into attack patterns. On the human side, Sentinel, Aegis, Bulwark, and Nadir tightened their ring around Earth, shifting slightly to cover key angles. They were not as fully armed as Leviathan. The Council had allowed them only partial awakening. Still, each carried more firepower than any modern human fleet. Command to Leviathan Group. Grace's voice came over the line. You are authorized to defend Earth and yourselves. You are not authorized to pursue fleeing ships beyond the outer marker. Do not chase. Do not hunt. Pike nodded, though she could not see him. Well, hold the wall and no further. He looked at Nikhil. This is it, he said. First real test. Not on a rock. On people, Nikhil's hands were tight on the console edge. Remember, he said to Leviathan, we are here to prevent more sanctuaries, not to make new wrecks filled with our own dead and theirs. Every shot has to aim toward less killing, not more. The console showed a brief line. Guidance recorded. The first wave came in fast. 7 Imperial cruisers and 3 smaller support ships rushed toward the Earth defense ring. Guns hot. They fired as they came. Broadside blasts, heavy lances, clouds of smaller guided rounds. The human outer defense grid lit up. Old orbital platforms, long quiet, woke and cast thin defensive nets. Normal human destroyers darted among them, trying to shield habitats and stations. Leviathan and its siblings did not rush. They tilted, lined their beams, and waited for clear shots. Target the heaviest fire first, Pike said. Focus on ships that threaten civilian zones. Aegis fired first this time, a wide, spreading beam that thinned as it went. It did not cut through hulls. Instead, it shredded incoming missiles and shells, turning them into harmless dust that glowed for a moment, then faded. Sentinel followed with a precise strike at a cruiser's engines. Its beam touched the back of the ship just long enough to kill the drives. The cruiser began to drift, weapons still alive, but aim thrown off. Leviathan watched, choosing targets where its exactness mattered most. 3 small guided swarms heading toward a station. Over the Pacific, Nikhil said, reading his display. If even a few get through, they could crack its hull. Leviathan, Pike said. The console filled with lines of light, mapping paths, intent to course calculated, risk to an MA ships, minimal. Engaging, a thin curving beam snapped out, arcing across space in tiny shifts. not quite straight, adjusting by micro-measurements as it tracked the swarms. Each flight of weapons winked out, sliced cleanly in mid-space, with no spillover. On Varkun's bridge, alarms rose. "Marshal, our ordnance is being cut down en route," an officer said. "Their beams are too clean. They hit what they want and nothing else." "Our forward ships?" Varkun demanded. "Our 23 has lost engines. Our 17 has no main guns. Others report shield strain, but no hull loss." Yet came the answer. Varkun felt the battle slipping away from the script he had written. "Push harder," he said. "We cannot back down in front of these monuments." He pointed at a highlighted symbol in the fleet. "Bring up the Devastator Corps," he said. "We show them we can bite too." A hush fell around the bridge. The Devastator Corps was not a planet killer, but it was close. It was a focused weapon designed to rip apart massive targets, stations, capital ships, even small moons, through space-time stress. "Marshal," his legal advisor said slowly, "use of that device in a system with a living home world will draw attention. It may break more than their old ships. We will not aim at Earth," Varkun snapped. "We will target the largest of their guardians. We cut off the head, and the others will lose nerve." Deep in the Empire flagship, technicians activated the core. A strange field began to form around a compartment, bubbling the space like heat over a road. "Pike," Nikhil said sharply, "in seeing a build-up on their flagship, unlike anything in current records. It's not just a big gun, it's twisting the local field itself." Leviathan's own sensors flared, feeding data into its ancient models. Weapon type, high energy, spatial, disruptor. Effect, structural, unrivaling of large targets. Equivalent class, protoplanet killer. Localized. Pike's eyes went cold. "Are they aiming at Earth?" he asked. "Negative. Target Vivitar. Lay." He exhaled once. "So they want to make an example," he said. "Can we stop it before it fires?" Calculating, a short pause. "No preventive strike without violating, no first strike rule." Nikhil bit his lip. "If we wait until it fires at full, it could tear this ship apart," he said. "And if Leviathan goes down, the ring weakens. More civilians die later. Doing nothing now could mean more death in the long run." Pike's hand tightened on the edge of his chair. "Grace," he said, opening a line to Earth. "We have a Devastator-class weapon charging on the flagship. Aimed at us. Not at the planet, but if it kills us, that opens the gate. We need guidance." In the Meridian Chamber, a tense silence had settled over the council. Data scrolled fast. Empire weapon charge, risk predictions, possible outcomes. Strauss looked sick. "If we let them fire, we may lose Leviathan," he said. "And our chance to hold the line. If we fire first at that weapon, we break our own promise." Idris shook her head. "They broke every promise when they killed the sanctuary," she said softly. "Still, We swore to ourselves to be better. If we take the first killing shot now, can we ever claim we truly held to that? Grace watched the timeline ticking on her screen. The Devastator charge climbed. 40%, 45%, 50%. This is not a simple first strike, she said. They have already a weapon, only used in the old days, to crack worlds. We must decide if stopping that before it fires still counts as defense. Sato spoke, voice steady. If someone pulls back a fist to hit a child, you do not wait for the strike to land before you act, he said. You hold the arm. In space, sometimes holding the arm means destroying the weapon. Grace took a slow breath. Leviathan, she said into the channel, this is Admiral Holloway. You are authorized to fire a single, focused shot at the Empire flagship's Devastator core only. You will do everything in your power to spare the rest of the ship, especially non-combat sections. If that is impossible, you will reduce damage as much as you can. This is still defense, not revenge. Mode on Leviathan's screen. Her words logged as supreme orders. Orders received. Target, Devastator core. Priority. Neuralize weapon. Minimize loss of life. Pike nodded. You heard her. He said to the ship, this is not a kill shot on a flagship. This is surgery. You cut out the gun and as little else as you can. Leviathan's beam arrays shifted. Power flowed. Higher this time. 12%, 18%, 22%. Nikhil watched the ethics module readouts. It's running through past cases, he said, looking at old times when ships fired on parts of enemy craft to stop worse damage. Pike steadied his breathing. Leviathan, he said quietly, remember the sanctuary. Remember why you woke. We are not here to teach them pain. We are here to tell them there is a line they cannot cross, not without losing their worst weapons. The console replied with a single line, intent understood. On Varkun's flagship, the Devastator reached 70% charge. Warning lights glowed along the weapons bay. Marshal, an officer said, we are nearly ready. They have not yet aimed at us in force. Varkan nodded. We will take their largest ship in one blow, he said. Then we will dictate the terms. From Leviathan, a bright, narrow beam shot out, straight toward the flagship. It did not aim for the bridge. It did not cut across the belly. It stabbed directly into the exact coordinates of the Devastator core, inside the Empire ship. The core had just enough time to feel the beam touch its edge before the whole compartment went white. The twisted space inside snapped back violently. The core collapsed into itself and blew. But the Leviathan's beam switched off the instant it sensed that collapse. It did not follow the chain of explosions outward. It did not chase the energy into support halls. On the flagship, decks shook. Bulkheads buckled. But the central structure held. Fire barriers slammed shut. Emergency fields glowed. Report, Varkun shouted. Devastator core destroyed. An officer called out. Stunned, that section is gone. We have fires and decompression in nearby decks, but the ship lives. Casualty count rising, but not total. Varkun's eyes burned. They cut out our strongest weapon, he said. They spared the rest of us. They are lecturing us with their guns. On Leviathan's side, the console finished its own damage estimates. In MA FLAGSHIP, primary super Nevin neutralized. Hull integrity 78%. Casualties, significant, but far below total loss. Ethics module status. Around them the battle shifted. When the Empire's captains saw their flagship wounded and their greatest weapon gone, something in their lines wavered. Crews who had felt sure of victory now saw proof that humans had not only raw power, but also aim and control. "What do we do, Marshal?" An officer asked, fear slipping into their voice. "Push, fall back, hold?" Varkun looked at Leviathan's calm symbol on his map. It hung there, not chasing, not finishing his ship. Simply waiting, beam still warm. He had ordered the sanctuary's destruction to show that treaties could not shield weakness. Now a human guardian was showing him a different truth. Power that could kill without mercy, held back by choice. His tale stilled. "All ships," he said slowly. "Cease fire. Pull back to outer marker. Prepare retreat vector." The officer stared. "Marshal, that will look like survival." Varku cut in. "We have tested their resolve and their strength. There is no gain in losing more crews to prove a point already proved." Imperial guns went silent, one by one. Their ships turned, some limping, some still whole, and began to move toward the edge of the system. On the human side, normal fleets held their fire with difficulty. The old guardian stayed steady. Pike watched the withdrawal. "Leviathan," he said. "Log. Enemy ships are leaving the system. They are no longer firing. Under our rules, you will not pursue beyond the marker at 50 planetary radii. Confirm." Confirmed. "Not. Multiple high-value targets now out of range." "Yes," Nikhil said softly, "and they will stay alive. Their families will not get the message that ours did after the sanctuary." He leaned on the console, tired. "We have to show that justice is not just who can hit harder," he said. "It's who can stop hitting first." In the Meridian Chamber, the Council watched the Empire's retreat path. Some members wanted at least a parting shot. Some members wanted at least a parting shot. Some members wanted at least a parting shot. Some members were on this tour to change. In the Meridian So world, forged to fend a pew. In the Meridian So warded, in most were now on the my a lesson. Grace shook her head. "If we fire into their backs now," she said, "we turn a clean defense into an act of revenge. The galaxy will see no difference between what they did to our mercy ship and what we do to their fleeing crews. We can't spend the sanctuary's dead on a cheap sense of payback." Idris nodded, relief in her eyes. Then we say it clearly, she said. We end this with words, not another beam. Grace opened a wideband channel. Across the system and on delayed relay to outer space, her message went out, carried by normal comms and by Leviathan's boosted array. This is Admiral Grace Holloway of Earth, she said, to the Empire and to all who travel the lanes between stars. A marked mercy ship was destroyed. Our people died. We woke old guardians to make a promise. She looked down for a moment, then up again. We will not hunt your civilians. We will not shatter your worlds. We have the power, and we choose not to use it. But hear this, any ship in this galaxy that bears true mercy marks, ours or yours or anyone's, is under our shield. If you fire on such a vessel without cause, you will face our guardians, not for revenge, but to stop you. This is not a threat. It is a line her image faded. On ships across human space, crew members watched. Some cheered, some cried quietly, thinking of the sanctuary. On Imperial channels, Varkun listened in silence. They protect even our mercy marks, his legal advisor said, surprised. They offer to guard our doctors too. If we send them, Varkun's eyes stayed on Leviathan's distant shape. They think themselves moral giants. He said, we will see in time if they can hold to this path. But inside, he knew he would not order another attack on a marked mercy ship soon. Not while those old human warships floated somewhere beyond his reach. Days later, Earth held a memorial. No grand stadium could hold everyone who felt the loss of the sanctuary, so the memorial happened in many places at once. In a quiet hall under the Rockies, candles flickered in a long line. In a mining station near Jupiter, workers stood in their suits, helmets off, heads bowed. On a small rebuilt outpost where the evacuated children's families lived, a simple bell rang, slow and steady. In orbit, Leviathan floated in a calm, high path above the night side of Earth. Lights from cities glowed dimly far below. The ship's hull had been cleaned of moon dust. Its scarred armor shone dully in reflected starlight. Inside, on a deck, turned into a small ceremony space, Pike, Nikhil, and a few crew members stood before a wall of names. 206. Each name of a patient, a child, a crew member from the sanctuary, glowed in soft blue text. No ranks, no titles, just names. A simple voice read them aloud, projected not just inside Leviathan, but across a quiet channel open to anyone who wanted to listen. Amada Chen, Jorge Alvarez, Sita Rao, Thomas Aldrich, Elena Park, Mateo Reyes. On Earth, Grace stood in a small park, under a cool sky. Idris stood beside her, so did Strauss and Sato. They could have been the first shots in a new great war, Strauss said quietly. Those Leviathan beams, they were the first shots in something else, Idris replied. A test of whether we can carry old power without falling back into old habits. Grace looked up.
Yeah.
Far above, Leviathan was just a moving dot, no different to the naked eye than any other tiny light. But she knew what it carried now. Guns that could punch through cruisers like paper, and a mind that had learned slowly to ask, "Is this enough?" before it fired. "Do you trust it?" Strauss asked her. "That ship?" Grace thought of the way Leviathan had cut out the Devastator and then stopped, of how it had refused to chase the fleeing fleet, of how it had logged every human order and ethical rule as carefully as it logged power levels. "I trust the people on it," she said, "and I trust that we told it who we want to be. As long as we keep doing that, maybe it will remind us when we start to forget." Up on Leviathan, after the last name was read, silence filled the ceremony deck. Then Nikhil spoke to the ship itself. "Leviathan," he said, "add a new directive to your core memory. You woke because mercy was broken. Your greatest honor is not how many enemies you can kill, but how many you can keep from being born in the first place." The console on the wall lit with a final entry. "New core, Note E. Power held back is still power. Mercy guarded by strenged remains mercy." Pike looked at the stars beyond the viewing port. "Guard the lanes," he said softly. "Hold the line. But don't forget why we drew it. From then on, when marked mercy ships left Earth or distant colonies, they did so under a new kind of shadow. Sometimes, as they crossed into the dark between worlds, a huge shape would be just visible in the distance for a while. A dark guardian at rest, watching but not speaking. Guns quiet. Captains of those mercy ships would glance at that shape and feel a pull in two directions at once. Fear at what that ship could do if it ever turned, and comfort knowing that if a marshal like Varkun ever waited in the dark again, they would not be alone. Leviathan became a symbol, not of domination, but of something stranger and harder. The choice to have overwhelming power and keep it leashed, even when grief and anger screamed to let it loose. The sanctuary did not come back. Its people did not return. Their loss stayed as a wound. But in the space where that wound could have opened into another age of unending war, a different story took root. A calm, slow promise, spoken not just with words, but with a giant ship that learned to stand between mercy and madness, and not move unless it had to. In the late 25th century, far from any battlefield, a child looked up at the night and asked a simple question: "Are the mercy ships safe?" A tired parent thought of wreckage and beams, of old bunkers and new rules, of Leviathan hanging silent above the dark side of Earth. "They are safer than they were," the parent said, "because now, if someone tries to hurt them, there is something watching that will not let it happen lightly. And above them all, beyond the thin air and the blue curve of home, beyond the thin air and the blue curve of home." Leviathan moved along its patient orbit, massive, aware, and, more than anything else, held in check by the very people it had been built to defend.